it's Jim Treffert. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Recheck. I think probably many of you in this room have experienced Recheck. We partner with lenders, installers, everybody across the industry to help build trust. Our goal is to get more solar deployed more quickly. I think we can do that by helping you all establish more credibility, demonstrate that you are a good actor and that you know what you're doing, and we're here to help.
Some of your background. We know that, can you talk about the previous space you were in, the company that you helped found, co-found, and exit? I think as I was doing my own research on you, I found there was that you have some of the most impressive entrepreneurial kind of arcs and character stories that I've found so far that I think people should know about. I'm personally very excited to sit with you because I'm so stoked about what you've done, but in all seriousness, would you just maybe give 2 shares or so about that background?
I dropped out of college in 2009. I started a big data company in 2009. I was one of the first to build analytics for apps. So if you were somebody who was building an app and you wanted to know what's going on, you would use it. The company's called Mixmail. It's a going concern. It's like 400 employees, 100 plus million in revenue. And I worked on that for 10 years. And then I took a break and I wanted to work at solar. So that's what I'm here.
I mean, getting an exit, I think, is something that a lot of people dream about when they start a company. And you go from a $100 million company in revenue and exit to a great number than that. As an entrepreneur, I'd tip my hat to you. I don't know how hard that is. And I'm honored to sit by it that way. But I also want to bring up some of the other skills that we found on LinkedIn. Just so everyone kind of knows all your skill sets. And these are all endorsed, by the way. So if you go on this LinkedIn, you'll find all these endorsements. Some of them are heavier than others, but. So web analytics, 10 endorsements, JavaScript, Python, Django, web applications, recruiting, Git, startups, jQuery, all with some series between 1 and 8 sort of endorsements. Then we get into some more interesting ones, like skateboarding, 2 endorsements, and knitwear.
And
6 endorsements.
Crushing is actually
Crushing, yes, 14 endorsements for crushing, but what do you knit?
I have a knitted beard that I wear sometimes. I guess that's it.
Well, I don't know that I've ever had anyone endorse me for anything crafted before, so. I'm also a woodworker, built his own table, jigsaw stuff, pretty cool things, but he's a knitter, so. And then, Tom. Please introduce yourself.
Tom Karen, I'm the CSO, one of the founders of Elbaum Solar. I've been in the door-to-door space since 2000. I started in the pest control space, and 3 years ago couldn't avoid the itch to jump in the solar game.
Right. How many reps did you have total between managed between Vantage and Elbaum? You say you helped build.
1,700 between the 2 entities. At our height of the pest control, we ran around 12 market sales reps nationwide. Sales compliance is something I'm very familiar with. We represented national brands such as Terminex and Orkin. Anytime you're representing a multi-billion-dollar brand, they're pretty uptight on how you sell the products. So I'm used to sales compliance, passionate about it. I'm younger.
Thank you, Tom. You lucked out because all the due diligence I had on you gets you. So I'll find your Spotify people there and figure out what public plays.
There's not much. I don't post much.
No, I noticed. I do it a couple more days. So I hope that it gives you some sense of who everyone is, both personally and professionally. But we have both tech entrepreneurs on the panel. We have a lending platform on the panel that's prominent and prevalent in our industry. And we have someone who's successfully scaled multiple sales organizations. So we're talking about sales compliance. As just kind of a brief introduction to Recheck. I'm all excited about Spain. Recheck, at least at some level, is a means to verify reps, make sure that they kind of keep a record of good deals and bad deals that they sell, regardless of the installers and most of the platform or lenders. Is that accurate? That's right. Is there anything that you feel like is necessary to bring up that I know there's more to it, but I don't want to miss that.
Yeah, well, I think that's consistent. I think that the important thing to think about for all of you, the reason you're here, and the reason you're listening to this, is the entire industry is talking about self-compliance, as you mentioned, it's one of the hottest topics. And I would guess that every person in this room has had situations where they've had like doors standing in their face because they think that you're here to scam up network that solar is a bunch of scammers. That a bunch of the deals that you sign, industry average is about 50% of deals that outside they canceled. 55%. No. So that's insane. That is incredibly high. That is so much wasted effort. And I think the right way to think about compliance is making your customers feel comfortable knowing that you are a professional, that this is a well-run industry, that they are not being taken advantage of outside. So you can't some content. You could double your installs overnight and just start cancellation. Obviously, we're going to be off there, but that's a huge lever pull, and it's a reason why the whole industry is wrapping around this idea of let's make sure we're doing it correct.
So, in your opinion, is recheck something, or I want to see that recheck visit up? We want to go with a friend again. She's got something similar. Is a product like recheck something that should be mandated and required, or does that feel like that we are compelling and forcing behavior as opposed to inviting and enticing people?
I think it partly part of it is saying, hey, bad actors, we cannot tolerate bad actors in this industry. You can't make mine an opt-in thing. Because guess what? Bad actors might do that. It's got to be something that is required at some stage. Our approach, and the reason why probably at least half the people in the certain army get bid to recheck, is to go with the lenders and say, hey, the lenders have a lot of influence here. They care deeply about this. And we saw the first half of our company's existence, which is working with many of the major lenders to get them on board and say, hey, let's all link arms and say, hey, we're going to do this. Let's build a coalition. And that has happened. We're live with 5 major lenders. We've had 18,000 sales reps get recheck IDs. And you can see that a significant portion of the industry response like only works because you have this broad coalition and saying, we do want to solve this problem. Another important thing about that is once you get to that level of coalition, it becomes risky to not be part of it, right? If you've got 80% of lenders all doing this thing and saying, hey, we're not going to tolerate misconduct on our platform, and then you've got a couple lenders that are like not doing that, that's a big risk for those lenders. Those lenders come out. You're going to be the place of last resort where people that are out there scamming, defrauding people, they're going to go up with you. That's a big risk. And they recognize that. That's a big part of us getting to where we are. Is just like getting enough lenders.
We're represented here across a spectrum of issues that everyone has a part to play. So I want to ask first, Jack, we were talking kind of before this about one of your main roles at Bitcoin was introducing compliance goals. And I'm going to say what I think maybe a lot of people think in the space, and forgive me if this sounds harsh, but for a long time, for the past, I'd say 18 months to 2 years, everyone's had a big finger point in sales. Everyone said sales are terrible, guys are all dishonest, they're all liars and cheats. The only thing they want to do is take advantage of the customer. And as a guy who was a sales guy, I found that to be, in some cases, sort of offensive. They're like, you calling me a liar and a cheat? That doesn't feel good. Why would someone care about compliance? Because sometimes actually our feeling is, I want to resist anything that boxes me in as a sales rep. Why should we care about compliance in the way that you found it to be successful?
It's a great question. I think I think in a sales world, there's something, a concept of broken communication. You know, it's a he said versus she said. And I've been in the door-to-door, I'll age myself, since 1998. So a little bit. I've seen a lot of companies rise and fall, and a lot of them have fallen because of lack of compliance. Rather than, I think, the sales organization viewing compliance as a burden, they need to look at it as just a tool in their tool belt. And once implemented, and it's not a taboo, it's something that's part of the process, I think the sales representative and the organization will adopt it, will embrace it, nurture it, and it will be just a natural part of the process. When you have a violation of expectations from the customer, this is the one way to go in and bridge and mitigate it. I'm not going to say eliminate it, but you're going to greatly mitigate that.
So your platform, CallPilot, for those who don't know, is a third-party verification call. You're recording calling calls of a sales completion, and you're making sure that qualification has been meant for the sale to proceed as that closing. Is that right?
Yes, it's more than just a phone call. It's an audio and video. So it's an AI avatar that is being displayed, and we then grab the information that either the EPCs or the lender wants to go and validate, including but not limited to name, length of the loan, the amount, the system size, etc. And you then present it to the homeowner. There's a lot of AI tools behind the scenes that we've implemented that users cannot see, but we have sentiment analysis, voice analysis. We transcribe the conversation and have phrase detection for certain things, and then can flag them for either lenders to look at it or even EPCs internally. Or even sales leaders should actually even view that for their own sales reps, because you catch everything. You can't pause the call, you can't stop it. So you get to hear the entire interaction if the sales rep is present.
So in your history with CallPilot so far, and then I'm going to ask you to maybe think back to your compliance days a bit, because there's some similarities in terms of the sales reps that we go online, blue phone, selling customer. Do you find that compliance or do you find that there's errors as much with sales reps' behavior as there is with buyers being liars, or both?
That's a good one. I think no matter how thin the pancake is, there's always two sides to every story. But when you take that video and you view that and you listen to the call, it takes all that away, because you hear the entire interaction. And then it's did their sales representative, really present all the terms and conditions as they should? Because I'll go back to a violation of expectation. The customer, it's not what you sold, it's what they understood. And I think that is something that everyone really needs to adopt and embrace. It doesn't matter what you said, it's what they understood. And with CallPilot, we bridge that gap. We take all the information, it's objective. You don't need to go and train a human to go and do that. You present it and ask the question exactly as it's intended, and then they answer the question. So yes, I think that historically, I'll use my Vivid experience, even Fluent, there was a huge reduction in cancellation. There was an uptick in referrals. There's definitely a huge mitigation in regulatory and compliance complaints. And when you present that call to a regulatory agency, it's very tough to dispute. I'm not saying it's impossible, it's very tough.
Tom, why would sales reps not want to use a product like CallPilot or a product like Recheck? And is that the largest problem in compliance? How do you manage that as a leader of an organization when you look at that as a threat?
Great question. If they don't want to, then that's a problem. They're not the right players on your team. You want people that catch the same vision as the company. And what are your goals? Do you want to be a fly-by-the-night sales company, or do you want to be a company that stands the test of time? And we're travels quick in the door-to-door industry, And you're either a company that does things the right way or a company that's just looking to chase a quick buck and cut corners and just try to get the sale, opposed to providing true value to the consumer. And you have to take that stance on conducting yourself in business, doors open. And I think so often we're short-sighted on trying to catch the now money instead of building a foundation and something to scale that inevitably is going to be there for the long term.
So as an early sales leader in my life, I came across this rep that I was trying to curb some behavior. I didn't want to come late to meetings all the time. He kept showing up late over and over again. And finally I fired him for being late. And he told me something I've known forever. He said, "What you allow, you encourage." And it changed how I thought about how you look at that. What are you doing in your company today, or what are things that you think about doing, or as you look at these products on the table, or lenders that you want to choose? Because we have Mosaic here on the panel. How do you strategically make moves to hold people accountable to those sorts of behaviors that you want to have?
I think it sounds cliche, but it starts at the top. It starts with the founders, the partners, of having a vision of what your core values are and how you conduct yourself. And then you instill that in your leaders all the way down the chain, from your SVPs to your regionals, divisional sales managers. And this is just who you are as a company. You don't tolerate it. You make examples of people that don't follow your guidelines, and it's tough. When you've recruited somebody and invested a lot of time, energy, training them, getting them housing, courting them for months just to get them up to area, it's really hard to have the discipline to let them go if they're not falling in line or if they're tainting the others in your work. Quick story, I had a sales team out in Minnesota years back, and it was a big team, it was about 50 reps, and their numbers were just crap. I was like, how are they not producing more? And so I went out there, and after the day, I could realize real quick that there were some pretty bad players in the office. They were selling bad deals, lazy, they were just tainting the office. And so I met with the leader, and I encouraged him to let the bad players go, and he was terrified of it because he's counting his money. I've got apartments, I'm going to be out this. We purged 60% of the team, and their numbers tripled. Within a week, their numbers tripled. So it's the right move, and it just instilled that that's how we do business. And those guys retained and became leaders and were able to scale up forward by having the courage to just stick to our core values.
Many people in this room may want to know, because I certainly do. With Recheck, how would you guys validate the possible complaints that are coming either from lenders and from consumer to the lenders? How would you guys facilitate? What would be the mechanism to address a bad actor?
Yeah. It's wrong. It's got to be close. It's like a little close. You got to be on.
So part of this, there are a bunch of challenging parts of this, right? Like, for example, every installer I talk to either says, I have people I want to report, or how do I use this to make sure I'm only working with high quality sales reps? And the answer to that for now is, well, we are only accepting reports from finance companies. They're in a position where they do a great deal of diligence before they decide that there has been a situation of misconduct. And so our reports, we require documentation, require evidence of investigation, things like that. So that might be, for example, that might be transcripts from a call that says, hey, so there may be data coming from CallPilot.
Sure. And that's kind of what I think is the hope, right? To use a CallPilot-like solution to facilitate that validation, because as Scott said, right, buyers, right, what do you say? Buyers are liars, right? Sometimes. And we want to make sure that it's not always falling just on a sales rep. Again, no matter how thin the pancake is, there's always two sides to every story.
Totally. And I think another thing that Scott mentioned earlier that is very important to us is that context matters. Like, you have to put everything in context. Everybody's going to have a deal where the homeowner later decides, hey, this is what I was told. There's a dispute about what was said, whatever it is, inevitable that it will happen in this situation. And so this is something where
we want to put it in the context of all the good things you shot. You've done all these great deals. You've got all these happy homeowners. If something occasionally happens, like that's expected. It's not, we're not looking for absolute perfection because it doesn't exist. Well,
So, listen, wow, that was hard. Jeff, the Luminaire fan and resident mosaic expert, you have this interesting responsibility and role in the space. For lack of a better term, means a power broker principle. The lenders hold a tremendous amount of power in what they allow to happen, what they mandate bring to happen. And so, for example, we said a recheck is mandatory, and a company like CallPilot or similar to these things are mandatory for these laws, these highest products. If not that, what does a lender do to create compliant by design type products for a product experience that increases the opportunity to deal with all the way through use bad actors, but not slow down players?
that's big, honest. Totally makes sense. Yeah, this one is very quiet.
Yeah.
And I think Recheck, CallPilot, and we've done a welcome call, I think since 2017, don't quote me on that, but we've had our own version of that for a long time. Those are part of that experience in Stride. I sort of think of the compliant by design experience in two ways. There are regulatory or legal requirements, those are table stakes, and you built guardrails into your experience in one flow so that you can't vary from those. But the flip side is best practices also, and you provide guidance to users for the best app. So that you know, as a lender, you see a lot of different practices out there, and you have experience with the things that result in the best outcomes. And so guiding in that direction is really important.
Why would a lender not have a welcome call?
I don't know if you're asking the right question.
In your opinion, there are lenders that exist that don't have a welcome call.
Yeah.
Is that? I'm just trying to say. Are they doing that because they're just less concerned about the risk? They're okay getting constant jump kills that come in, or are they just not having the time with it? Capability to build a tech around compliance.
Yeah. So again, it's hypothetical.
Totally hypothetical.
That's a unique part of it. There certainly is pressure on the sense that welcome calls get in the way of this thing. I mean, that is certainly something that I'm asked. Homeowner protection is rep protection. Jack talked about it, right? That you have that recording of how expectations were set with the homeowner. That's gold, because as you're having those conversations and setting those expectations, that's memorialized.
Really bridge the gap between how a deal was sold, whether it's in the renewable energy or outside of it, home automation, security. It really doesn't matter the type of transaction. If it's done via door-to-door or even online, and the consumers are obligated for an X amount of time, CallPilot is the tool to go ahead and validate and instill some serious trust and validation within that application and transaction. I've been doing this for a while. For those of you guys who may or may not know me, I've been the Chief Operating Officer at Vivint. I've injected a lot of the same types of practices into compliance in that arena, and it worked great for us.
Thank you, Jack. And we're going to get into some of that background, how that really shapes what you're doing today with your tech platform. But just quickly, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but your Venmo is public. And we're curious, because I did some looking, some due diligence. Back in 2019, David Leshin, remember David Leshin?
No clue.
Well, he paid you some untold sum of money to quote unquote dunk it.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, can you dunk?
Cannot dunk.
Do you know what he was paying you to dunk?
No.
So it's a mystery.
It's an absolute mystery, yeah.
Well, we maybe we'll get that later on. Anyway, I would encourage you to look up Jack online. He's got some really great stuff. He's a fantastic human. We're happy to have you here. Thank you very much, Jack. Jeff, please.
I actually, Jeff Regency, with Solar Mosaic. We are a lending platform. I lead our products team, used to lead our operations team. So we would user experience and a little bit of the platform making put our famous use. I think I'll walk in at work.
That was way too short on your background, and so I'm going to probably leave where it is. Yes, but we need to know. So you have some pretty interesting educational background as well as military background. Could you just talk about that? Just because first I find you very interesting, and give some, I think, credence to maybe some of the way you think about the world.
Sure. I did an RTC as an undergrad in Sabre, was doing my astronomic group here at one. Spent a year after that in a CallPilot's factory in Elbaum, implementing the accounting and finances. Went into the Air Force with the intelligence officer. Couldn't decide what I wanted to do when I grew up, so I got out and went back to school up in Western Fury. I had the Western and have been in operational space ever since until joining the private team. But generally in a lot of fintech-related organizations. And I think a lot of that has given me a very close relationship with the customer.
Jeff, the other thing that I want to bring up was your pension score. We looked at that a little bit, and you got a music here for looks like maybe a band that people are familiar with called Blue Years. Do you play instruments that would?
I don't feel like I see the line.
You did this, 3 years ago. This is to get a lesson they would keep yourself on.
Look at
3 years ago, we saw this.
better than my Venmo is really stand.
Well, Venmo is a strange social factor, but yeah. You also have some great memes on here you can bring up. I think we're going to pass out. That was
We could look at it later.
yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.